What if happiness wasn't just, a fleeting feeling, but something perfectly engineered?
Hmm.
Like, imagine a society where every single need is met, every desire instantly gratified, stability is just absolute. Sounds like a dream, right?
It does sound appealing on the surface, yeah.
But what if getting that perfection came at this truly unimaginable cost?
It's a massive question, isn't it? Really challenges our ideas about what it means to be human, about
Mm,
freedom.
mm.
And it's exactly what Aldous Huxley made us confront way back in 1932.
Absolutely. So, welcome everyone. We're doing a deep dive today into his, prophetic novel, Brave New World.
Yeah, prophetic is the word.
We're heading, about 6 centuries into the future, into this world where humanity has been fundamentally re-engineered, not just for efficiency, but for constant pleasure and total predictability.
And our mission today really is to unpack the fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty disturbing ways this society builds its idea of perfection.
We'll look at the principles they live by and see what happens when someone from outside, someone different, challenges the whole system.
Yeah, it gets pretty intense.
Get ready for some, unsettling insights. It's maybe less overtly violent than some dystopias, but honestly, maybe even more chilling in a way. Let's jump in.
Okay, so this world state, this perfect society, it operates under this key motto. You see it right over the main entrance of their Central London Hatchery and Conditioning Center. It says community, identity, stability.
Right. And every single thing about this world is just meticulously built to uphold those three pillars.
Everything.
And when you say built from the ground up, you mean that literally, like from the moment of conception. It starts right there in the fertilizing room.
Exactly. No chance taken. We're talking surgical introduction of gametes, precise temperature controls, meticulous inspection of every single egg.
It really does sound like an industrial process for making people.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And this is where Huxley introduces a concept that's just, well, fundamental to the whole world state's stability, Buchanovsky's process.
Ah, yes. So normally it's one egg, one embryo, one adult. Right, that's nature.
Right. But Buchanovsky's, they hail it as a prodigious improvement on nature.
Prodigious is putting it mildly. It lets one egg, bud and split into?
8 to 96 identical embryos.
96 identical humans from one egg. It's staggering.
And it's not just some biological trick. It's explicitly, as the director says, one of the major instruments of social stability.
How so?
Well, the whole point is to create standard men and women in uniform batches.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Identical workers, perfectly suited to staff an entire factory.
Wow. Mass production.
Exactly. Human mass production. They even boast about records over 16,000 children from just one ovary in London. Even more in other centers.
It's just chilling, thinking of people as interchangeable parts. Okay, so after Buchanovsky's process, where do these burgeoning lives go?
They continue their journey through the bottling room, where they move from test tubes to larger containers, all meticulously labeled, heredity, date, Buchanovsky group.
And then into the social predestination room.
Exactly, a place kept in crimson darkness. Because, as Huxley writes, embryos are like photograph film, highly sensitive, easily manipulated.
And this is where the real conditioning begins. In the bottle.
Oh, yeah. They get precise nurturing, blood surrogate, hormones, extracts.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just about keeping them alive and healthy. It's about shaping them. Chemically?
Shaping them for their future role.
Precisely. And it's not just chemicals. They do physical conditioning, too. Towards the end, they're literally shaken.
Shaken?
Why? To get them used to movement. To minimize the trauma of decanting, which is their version of birth.
Okay, so physical prep. What about their biological destiny? You mentioned labels.
Right. And here's another layer. Only about 30% of the female embryos are allowed to develop normally. The rest, they become free martins.
Meaning sterile?
Sterile? Yes. Through doses of male sex hormone. And this isn't seen as a problem, it's celebrated. A human invention, better than slavish imitation of nature, controls population, controls behavior.
It's a complete re-engineering of biology, and this ties directly into their caste system, right? Alphas, betas, gammas.
Absolutely. These embryos are explicitly decanted as socialized human beings, as alphas or epsilons, as future sewage workers or future directors of hatcheries. It's all predetermined.
And how do they ensure the lower castes fit their roles intellectually and physically?
Well, that's where the science of limitation comes in. They deliberately create the lower castes, deltas, epsilons, by depriving them of oxygen during development.
Depriving them of oxygen? Seriously?
Yes. 70% oxygen for dwarfs, less for what they chillingly call eyeless monsters who are deemed no use at all.
That's horrifying. But what's the logic behind it?
Pure cold efficiency. One of the hatchery experts actually muses, if epsilons could just mature physically as quick, say, as a cow's, what an enormous saving to the community.
Get them working faster, cheaper.
Exactly. Get them to their pre-assigned slot in society as quickly and economically as possible.
And this conditioning, it continues even after decanting.
Oh, definitely. Those destined for hot climates undergo heat conditioning. So working in tropical mines or factories feels perfectly normal, even pleasant.
And I remember something about rocket engineers.
Ah, yes. The rocket plane engineers. While they're embryos, their containers are kept in constant rotation. Upside down, sideways.
So they actually like being upside down.
They're conditioned to. They become, quote, only truly happy when they're standing on their heads. It ensures everyone is not just suited for their job, but actually prefers the conditions of that job. It's meticulous.
So, okay, the bodies are engineered, tailored for their purpose,
Yeah.
but then comes the mind. And that takes us to the infant nurseries and those neo-Pavlovian conditioning rooms, which are just deeply unsettling.
Unsettling is the word. Picture this. 8-month-old babies. Delta cast, so they're dressed in khaki. They're brought into a room, and naturally they crawl towards these beautiful bright roses and colorful picture books. They're happy, gurgling,
Seems innocent enough.
until the director gives a signal, and then suddenly, bam! Bells, sirens, loud noises. And worse, a mild electric shock pulses up from the floor they're crawling on.
Oh, God. So their pleasure turns instantly to...
To terror. Sharp, spasmodic yelps, Huxley writes. Their little bodies twitching. They learn very quickly to associate books and flowers with fear and pain.
But why? Why condition them against books and flowers? Seems almost random.
It's coldly logical from the world state's perspective. The director explains it. You don't want lower caste people wasting the community's time over books. They might read something that undesirably decondition one of their reflexes. Can't have that.
Okay, I get the books part, sort of. But the flowers. Nature.
The flowers. That's about consumption. They want people to love all country sports. Why? Because country sports entail the use of elaborate apparatus.
Ah. So if you hate free, beautiful nature, you're more likely to pay for activities that require manufactured goods and transport.
Precisely. Drive consumption, hence those electric shocks.
Yeah.
It all serves the system.
Wow. Okay. And this control, it goes even deeper with sleep teaching, right? Hypnopedia.
Yes, Wikipedia. The story goes it was sort of discovered by accident. A boy, Ruben Rabinovich, fell asleep with the radio on and repeated an English lecture perfectly the next day, even though his family only spoke Polish.
So they tried to use it for education?
They did. But it didn't really work for factual learning. The director gives the example of the Nile River kids could repeat facts about it. The River Nile is. But they couldn't understand it. They couldn't answer basic questions. You can't learn a science unless you know what it's all about.
So useless for facts. But
For moral education, he says, it's perfect. Why? Because moral education, according to him, ought never, in any circumstances, to be rational.
you don't need to understand why something is right or wrong. You just need to accept it unquestioningly.
Exactly. And we see this brutally applied with class consciousness. They play recordings to sleeping children. 80 beta babies, for instance, hearing things like, oh no, I don't want to play with delta children. And epsilons are still worse. They wear black, which is such a beastly color. I'm so glad I'm a beta. Over and over.
How often?
The book says 120 times, 3 times a week for 30 months.
That's an incredible amount of repetition.
Immense. And the result? The director boasts, till at last the child's mind is these suggestions, and the sum of the suggestions is the child's mind. And it lasts their whole life. The mind that judges and desires and decides, made up of these suggestions, but all these suggestions are our suggestions from the state.
It's brainwashing on an industrial scale. And it's not just individual thoughts, is it? They reshape the entire concept of relationships.
Completely.
Yep.
Even young children engage in what they call ordinary erotic play. It's encouraged, normalized,
In the whole idea of family.
abolished, utterly taboo. Words like parent, mother, father, they're considered smutty words, disgusting, almost pornographic. The idea of being born naturally, the viviparous reproduction, horrifies them.
Why such a visceral rejection of family?
Well, the controller, Mustafa Mond, explains their view later on. He talks about the terrible results of family life in the past, full of misery, perversion, jealousy, madness, suicide, all stemming from those intense, exclusive relationships.
So they aim to remove all that suffocating intimacy.
Exactly. Get rid of those dangerous, insane, obscene relationships to ensure stability, no strong loyalties except to the world state itself.
Okay, so we have people engineered from birth, minds conditioned from infancy.
Mhm.
What are the day-to-day pillars holding this society together? You have to start with soma, right?
Absolutely. Soma, the perfect drug. It's the ultimate tool for social control, disguised as happiness.
They have those catchy slogans for it.
They do. Like, 1 cubic centimeter cures 10 gloomy sentiments, and a gram is better than a dam. The promise is simple. Happiness was practically assured.
So it just numbs everything.
It essentially flattens emotions.
Yeah.
Provides constant contentment. It eliminates, very deliberately, any long time interval between the consciousness of a desire and its fulfillment. Feel bad. Take soma. Feel bored. Take soma. Want a break from reality. Take a soma holiday, what they call a bit of what our ancestors used to call eternity.
Instant escape, no need for resilience or coping mechanisms.
None whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which, of course, makes people incredibly easy to manage.
And alongside soma, there's this relentless push for consumption.
Oh, yeah, it's critical. The economy depends on it. That hypnopedic phrase, ending is better than mending, ending is better than mending, says it all.
Throw things away, buy new things, old clothes are beastly, new ones are wonderful.
Right, and it connects back to the conditioning against nature and books. As they say, you can't consume much if you sit still and read books, or, sit quietly appreciating a flower.
So it's a conscription of consumption. Keep people busy buying and discarding.
Keep the wheels turning. Keep the factories busy. Keep people distracted.
This engineered happiness also seems to involve just getting rid of unpleasant experiences altogether, like old age.
Gone. Abolished. Well, the appearance of it, anyway. The physiological stigmata of old age have been abolished. People look young, feel young, retain the powers and tastes of youth right up until they suddenly die around 60.
So concepts like retiring, reflecting on life, wisdom gained through age, they're just obsolete.
Completely obsolete. No need for them in a world geared towards perpetual activity and consumption.
And history, too. You mentioned books being burned.
Ruthlessly suppressed. Museums closed, monuments destroyed, all books from before Ford, their sort of deity figure before AF-150 are gone. The controller is blunt. That's why you're taught no history. Can't have people comparing the present unfavorably to the past or getting inconvenient ideas.
And religion, God.
Ancient history, literally. All crosses had their tops cut and became T's. For Ford, of course. Concepts like God, heaven, the soul, immortality. Just relics. Not needed when you have soma and constant pleasure.
Okay, what about love, romance, monogamy?
Seen as dangerous, unstable. That's exclusiveness. A narrow channeling of impulse and energy leads to jealousy, conflict.
So instead,
Everyone belongs to everyone else. That's another one of those core hypnopedic axioms drilled it over 62,000 times, apparently. Promiscuity isn't just allowed, it's practically mandatory.
solitude, being alone.
Actively discouraged. People are conditioned from infancy to hate solitude. Their lives are packed with communal activities, mandatory fun. Being alone means you might start thinking, and that's a threat.
So it really all comes back to stability.
Always. Stability above all else. As the world controller Mustafa Mond puts it, no civilization without social stability. No social stability without individual stability.
And individual stability means?
It means sane men, obedient men, stable in contentment, people who won't rock the boat, people who do their jobs, consume their goods, take their soma, and don't ask questions.
Which brings us perfectly to John, the character known as the Savage. He provides that external perspective, that challenge.
Exactly. Our glimpse of something else. He wasn't born in a bottle. He grew up outside the world state in the Savage Reservation.
Malpais, right? This isolated area in New Mexico, fenced off.
Yeah, where people still live with what the world state considers repulsive habits and customs. Things like
Marriage, families.
Yeah, and religion. Monstrous superstitions like Christianity and totemism. Plus, things like natural aging, disease, everything the world state has eliminated.
And we see this clash immediately through Lenina's eyes when she visits, don't we? She's horrified.
Literally horrified by the dirt, the smells, the flies, but especially by seeing an old man. Really old, with flabbiness, wrinkles, sagging cheeks. It's completely alien to her. In her world, people are youthful until 60, and then poof, crack, the end. Old age itself is obscene to her.
And yet she finds something familiar in the tribal rituals, the drums.
She does. She compares the Malpais drums to the rhythm of their own solidarity services and orgy-porgy rituals back in London. It hints at some underlying human need for communal ecstatic experience, maybe.
Maybe, but the rituals themselves are intense. Masked dancers, snakes, and that self-flagellation ritual.
Yeah, the whipping ceremony for rain. John explains it's also to show that I'm a man. It's about sacrifice, pain, connecting with something primal, all things completely absent in the world state.
And in John's own background is complex. His mother, Linda.
Linda's story is tragic. She's a beta minus from London who got lost on the reservation years ago during a storm. She was pregnant.
And had to give birth naturally, viviparously.
Yes, which was deeply shameful for her, coming from her background. She was ostracized by the native women. She was soma terribly, using mezcal and peyote instead. She never adapted. She's appalled by their monogamy. Nobody's supposed to belong to more than one person. And the idea of mending clothes. Mending's antisocial. It shows how deep her conditioning runs.
And John's education is this weird mix, isn't it?
It really is. He learns to read partly from Linda, using her leftover technical manuals from the hatchery, like chemical and bacteriological conditioning of the embryo. Can you imagine?
No. And the other part.
The other part comes from a very old, very damaged book he finds. The Complete Works of William Shakespeare.
Shakespeare. So his mind is filled with these two completely contradictory worlds. World state science and Elizabethan poetry and passion.
Exactly. This duality shapes his entire worldview and sets up the major conflict when he eventually goes to London.
But life in the reservation wasn't easy for him either, right? He was an outsider there, too.
Definitely. He was white hair, the son of the strange woman. He got beaten, ostracized, wasn't allowed to participate in the male initiation rites into the kiva. Not for you, white hair, they told him.
So he felt that pain of not belonging.
Deeply. And it was through that solitude and suffering, often self-inflicted, that he discovered concepts alien to the world state, time and death and God. He even tries, a form of self-crucifixion at one point, trying to understand pain, atonement.
Wow. Intense. And then comes the big reveal about his father.
The huge twist. It turns out his father is none other than the director of hatcheries and conditioning himself the DHC, the very man who was Linda's boss back in London when she disappeared.
The ultimate hypocrisy.
Yeah.
How does that come out?
John reveals it publicly in the hatchery when the director is trying to dismiss Bernard Marx. John calls him my father. Linda confirms it. It's a massive scandal, a monstrous practical joke on the director, who resigns in disgrace immediately.
So John and Linda are brought to London, and John becomes, what, a curiosity?
A sensation, an absolute celebrity. The savage is the talk of the town. Everyone wants to see this delicious creature who reads Shakespeare and talks about God.
But Linda, his mother.
Linda is treated as an obscenity. She's old, she's fast, she represents motherhood, all things repulsive to world state citizens. She's basically hidden away and allowed to indulge in a permanent soma holiday.
Which leads to her death, doesn't it?
Yes. She takes enormous doses, up to 20 grams a day. The doctor rationalizes it, saying even if it shortens her physical life, think of the enormous, immeasurable durations it can give you out of time, like accessing eternity.
That's a chilling justification.
It is. John is horrified. He objects, but he's powerless. Linda sinks into a drugged haze and eventually dies in the Park Lane Hospital for the dying, hallucinating about Popeye, her lover from the reservation. John's grief is immense, raw, and it quickly turns into rage.
And this is where he tries to start his rebellion.
Right there in the hospital. He sees the Delta workers lining up for their daily soma ration and just snaps. He starts shouting, "Don't take that horrible stuff. It's poison. It's poison." Tries to tell them, "I come to bring you freedom."
How do they react?
With total incomprehension, then anger. They just want their soma. So John starts throwing the tablets out the window, trying to liberate them. It causes an immediate riot.
And Bernard and Helmholtz, his sort of allies.
Well, Bernard Marx, who brought John there partly to save his own skin, is mostly terrified and hesitant. Classic Bernard. But Helmholtz Watson, the Alpha Plus lecturer, who feels stifled by the world state's perfection, he jumps right into the fray alongside John, almost exhilarated by the chaos. It shows how alienated he has become.
So this riot leads them straight to the top, right? To Mustafa Mond.
Straight to the World Controller's office. And this sets up the big philosophical showdown of the novel. The core arguments are laid bare.
Mond starts by explaining why things like Shakespeare or like Othello are forbidden, right?
Exactly. He says beauty's attractive, and we don't want people to be attracted by old things. We want them to like the new ones. And more pointedly, you can't make tragedies without social instability. The world's stable now. People are happy. Art requires conflict, strong emotions, instability. all things they've eliminated.
So great art is basically incompatible with their stable society.
That's his argument. Happiness and stability trump truth and beauty. He also defends the Bokanowski groups, those batches of identical twins, calls them the foundation on which everything else is built, the gyroscope that keeps the state stable.
And he brings up that Cyprus experiment.
Yes, a key piece of his justification. He explains they once tried colonizing Cyprus entirely with alphas, 22,000 of them, gave them freedom, resources.
Then what happened?
Total disaster. Within 6 years, they had a first-class civil war.
Mm-hmm.
The survivors begged the world controllers to take over. Mon uses this to prove that a society alphas couldn't fail to be unstable and miserable. You need the different castes, the hierarchy. You cannot pour upper caste champagne surrogate into lower caste bottles. Everyone has their place, their limits.
It also explains why they hold back progress, doesn't it? Shelving inventions.
Precisely. They deliberately keep a third of the population working on the land, even though they could automate it. Why? To avoid excessive leisure. Too much free time leads to thinking, unrest, and just taking more soma. Mon's rule is stark. Every change is a menace to stability.
Even scientific change.
Especially scientific change sometimes. Mon admits even science must sometimes be treated as a possible enemy. He says current science is just a cookery book with rules nobody can question.
And he used to be a scientist himself.
A brilliant physicist, actually. But he faced a choice. Pursue pure, potentially disruptive science and be exiled, or become a controller and manage society's happiness. He chose happiness for others by sacrificing truth.
Why was science curtailed so much?
It happened after the 9 Years' War, a devastating conflict that preceded the world state. Mon says after that, people were ready to have even their appetites controlled then. Anything for a quiet life. Stability became paramount. As he says, happiness has got to be paid for, and the price included restrictions on science and truth.
What about God and religion? Mon has those forbidden books.
Yeah, the Bible, William James. He calls them pornographic, in a way, dealing with taboo subjects. His argument is simple. In a world without loss, suffering, or old age, religious sentiment is superfluous. There are no losses for us to compensate.
Does he believe God exists?
He suggests God quite probably is one, but that God manifests differently now, or perhaps is irrelevant in their context. Crucially, he adds, people are never alone now. We make them hate solitude. They've removed the conditions where people might seek or feel a need for God.
So no God, no deep art, no history. What about things like nobility, heroism?
Mon dismisses them as symptoms of political inefficiency. In their perfectly organized world, there are no wars to fight, no temptations to resist because desires are instantly met, no intense loves or loyalties to cause conflict. Everyone is kept content and harmless by soma. It offers, he claims, Christianity without tears, all the comfort, none of the struggle or sacrifice.
No, Sir John just can't take it anymore, right? His big declaration.
Exactly. John finally bursts out. But I don't want comfort. I want God, I want poetry, I want real danger, I want freedom, I want goodness, I want sin.
Powerful stuff. And Mon's reply.
Chillingly calm. In fact, Mon says, you're claiming the right to be unhappy.
And John doesn't back down.
Not at all. He embraces it. All right then, he says, I'm claiming the right to be unhappy. And then he lists everything that comes with it. The right to grow old and ugly and impotent, the right to have syphilis and cancer, the right to have too little to eat, the right to be lousy, the right to live in constant apprehension of what may happen tomorrow, the right to catch typhoid, the right to be tortured by unspeakable pains of every kind. He claims all of it.
And Mon just says,
You're welcome. Sends shivers down your spine, doesn't it? The ultimate dismissal of everything John values, everything that makes us human in the traditional sense.
So after this confrontation, John tries to escape.
He does. He refuses Mon's offer of exile to an island with other nonconformists. Instead, he retreats to an abandoned lighthouse out in the Surrey countryside, trying to create his own pure, simple life away from civilization.
He tries to live off the land, work with his hands.
Yeah, he finds real, intense pleasure in things like making a bow and arrows, planting a garden, simple, meaningful work, a complete contrast to the push-button world he left.
He's trying to purify himself.
But he can't escape his own mind, his guilt.
No, he's haunted by thoughts of Lenia, by his grief over Linda, his feelings of impurity, his perceived murderous unkindness. He sees himself as bad and wicked.
And he turns to self-flagellation again, like in the reservation.
Yes, whipping himself, trying to atone, to drive out the sinful thoughts and feelings. He's desperately seeking a purity that seems impossible.
And this private agony becomes public spectacle.
Horrifically so. A Feely photographer, Darwin Bonaparte described as a big game photographer, stumbles upon him during one of these rituals and secretly films it.
Well, yes, the film The Savage of Surrey becomes a massive sensation. Suddenly, crowds of helicopters descend on the lighthouse, people shouting, demanding he perform the whipping stunt for them.
They turn his spiritual crisis into entertainment.
Exactly. It's the ultimate violation. And it culminates in this grotesque scene where the crowd, fueled by soma and the fascination of the horror of pain, starts chanting and mimicking his whipping. It descends into a frenzy, an orgy-porgy, right there at the foot of his lighthouse.
A twisted version of the rituals he saw in Malpace, but fueled by voyeurism and drugs instead of belief.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And John gets swept up in it too, tragically.
And the next morning?
The next morning, the sightseers return and find him. He's hanged himself in the lighthouse archway. His feet are slowly turning, Huxley writes, like two unhurried compass needles. A final, desperate escape.
Such a bleak ending. So we've journeyed through this world engineered for stability, for happiness, where life is manufactured, emotions are managed, freedom is basically traded for contentment.
And we've seen the collision between that world and John, the individual who represents raw, unpredictable, messy human experience, yearning for truth, beauty, meaning, even suffering.
It leaves us with some really tough questions, doesn't it? This deep dive.
Yeah.
It makes you think. If you actually had the choice, what would you truly value?
Yeah. Is a life completely free from pain, from uncertainty, from strong emotions? Is that worth giving up independent thought, real art, genuine connection, the full spectrum of human experience?
What would a truly perfect society look like to you? And what trade-offs, if any, would you be willing to make for it?
Lots to chew on there.
Definitely. We really hope this exploration of Huxley's Brave New World has given you plenty to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.